Every good decision that you've made has been attached to your primal question, and every poor decision that you have made has been attached to your primal question. When you know your primal question, you can actually see how that is true. I actually believe those moments of pain, trauma, anything that we may have experienced in the past set us up for this very, very powerful new gift. You cannot be in a long-term relationship with somebody who consistently answers your primal question with a no or a maybe.
Before we jump into this episode, I'd love to invite you to be a part of the community where you can listen to more content to help you be a smarter, stronger, and better equipped successful leader. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button. I would love and appreciate your support. It's amazing to me to watch the community grow and read all of your comments each and every week. I can't wait to go on the journey with you. Thank you so much, and it means the world to me. Welcome to the Impact Driven Leader Podcast with your host, me, Tyler Dickerhoof. I'm joined by Mike Foster. Mike is the creator of the Primal Question Framework, which revolutionized how we understand our highest emotional needs and leverage them as a superpower. He is a widely respected thought leader on personal development, and his work has been featured in the New York Times, Good Morning America, Fox News. As well, he lives in San Diego with his wife, Jennifer, of 28 years. Mike, thanks for being here.
Yeah, good to be here with you, Tyler.
So we kind of, talked about this a little bit in the open. You had a book that came out about a year ago. That's how, I've known of you and your work, but this book really came first right into my life as my wife read it, loved it. Every single person in our family that we know, our entire network, she sent out the Primal Questions assessment. Everyone did it. I answered it, and my question was, am I wanted? I want to start there, just kind of where did this framework come from and kind of guide people along the 7 questions and so forth along the journey.
Yeah, so the work started about 5 years ago. I am an executive coach, work with all kinds of high performers, high achievers, you name it, CEOs, Navy SEALs, everyone you can think of in terms that would fall into that category. And so one of the things in terms of my coaching work with people is just really trying to understand kind of the core of what the issue is in terms of their lives and trying to make things as simple as possible. And so started studying the impact of our emotional needs, some of the hidden forces that control our lives, seen patterns in my clients. The same thing sort of tripped them up over and over again. And so I guess now after about 6,000 hours of one-on-one interviews, 22 group labs, we've done about 35,000 assessments. I now have this framework called the Primal Question. Again, the book came out about a year ago, and the whole concept is really just understanding the thing underneath the thing that drives everything. And what the theory is that we all carry a question that we're trying to get answered with either a yes or sometimes it get answered with a no. And depending on that answer to that primal question, it really depends. It's what influences how we show up, whether we're sort of in emotional dysregulation, whether we are completely triggered, or whether we're at peace, or whether we're thriving and really pouring out our gifts. And so it all comes down to kind of this one question that has so much control over our lives.
Help me understand maybe personally where for you these questions and this desire to I got to find out more, like what experience in your own, self-relationship journey kind of flip the switch?
Yeah, for me, there's 7 questions, but the question you mentioned, your question, am I wanted, which is primal question number 4. My primal question is question number 1, which is the question, am I safe? And all the research points to, in our early childhood, we get imprinted with our primal question based on the environment and really our relationship with our parents or our caretakers. It's basically something that was confusing in our early childhood, so we continue to ask the question into our adult lives, or the question that we were having was answered with a big no. And so for me, my question of am I safe was answered with a big no because there was sexual abuse in my story. And so I didn't feel protected. I didn't feel I was safe. I didn't feel that somebody was looking out for me. Okay. Actually, I felt very much in my childhood in danger, and this is typically what happens when there's early childhood trauma, any type of abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. Anytime you kind of grow up in a chaotic environment like that or disruptive environment, safety really becomes the question of your childhood. And what happens is a child will then try to make sense of the issues that are going on in their environment and really take control of their questions. So what happens is I get imprinted with the question, am I safe? I now become an adult. I subconsciously keep asking this question and really organize my life, my effort, my resources, my relationships all around making sure I am safe. I'm getting a yes to that primal question. So that looks a bunch of different ways, but I can tell you like a couple of the outflows of that question would be a coping mechanism of hypervigilance, right? Hyper control. These types of things and behaviors and choices that I make in my life help me get a yes to my question of am I safe? And so one of the things that we just have to realize is that all of us have a question. One of the 7 questions is driving our life. Now, sometimes we have so much trauma in our lives that there's multiple primal questions driving our lives, but typically there's one that is really the filter of how we see everything, how we see ourselves, how we see society, how we see our relationships. And if those who understand really the thing underneath the thing that drives everything, you have this incredible advantage. But those who are unaware of the thing underneath the thing driving everything, you live at a massive disadvantage, and you live sort of this place of confusion. Like, why do I keep doing this? Why do I get so triggered by this person? Why do I live in what I call the scramble? And the scramble is all the things that we try to do to force the answer back to a yes. And as long as we're living in our scramble, we're not going to live a flourishing, healthy, mature life. We're going to actually use a lot of kid logic that we learned in our early childhood to survive and get our primal question answered with a yes. We then apply those strategies to our adult lives, and it just doesn't work.
Okay, we unpacked a lot. Thank you for that and giving that background. And, the thoughts that center in my mind, if we come back to kind of not absolutely leadership, it's about life, it's about self-leadership. But, you mentioned that it's a process and people can have multiple questions. One thing that really kind of it harkens, it's kind of this alert of how we either stay the child of that traumatic event or how long it takes us to evolve and recognize how we're answering the questions. For myself, I had a traumatic event when I was 14. I had a brother that died in a farming accident. And how I responded to that was just be intense, put my head down and push. And, that was applauded in our society because achievement driven and all the things that I kind of picked up from you is like how you responded to the safety is that you did hypervigilance control to be safe. It took me 25, 26 years to understand how that impacted me in relationships. So take that and what I shared with you or yourself and peel back that onion and how much destruction do we have in our lives until we start to actually answer or understand how we're trying to answer the questions.
Well, I think a lot of us make the mistake, and whether this is through coaching or therapy or any other, self-help stuff we try to do, is so often those types of efforts are focused on what I'd call the branches of the tree versus the roots. And so as long as we're trying to understand the branches and just basically what we do, I would say we trim the branches. Like when we have a problem, we're like, I'll work on that issue or that issue. But they're all fundamentally like just expressions of something that's happening at the deeper level of who we are as human beings. And for sure, experiences like losing a sibling, the trauma of that those are massive imprints in our lives that are going to produce a certain type of branches, okay? It's going to produce certain results in our life unless we understand the roots. And so I think, unfortunately, a lot of time is either spent denying the roots, denying the fact that these things happened, pretending that they didn't have an imprint on our lives. A lot of us spend a lot of time burying that type of stuff because it's honestly too painful to actually look at and address. And so to me, if you want to, I know a lot of leaders listen to this and people who want to have influence in other people's lives in our society, it's like, how you lead yourself is so critical. And if I don't understand sort of my emotional solar system, I don't understand like the sun at the center of that solar system is my primal question. It's really going to be difficult to be effective in relationships. It is going to impact the way that you lead. It's going to impact the way you do your marriage, how you do your parenting, how you do friendships and relationships, how you approach work. And so to me, my whole goal with people is I'm not here like to fix them or tell them what to do with their lives. I just want to turn up the lights full blast and blow away all the fog so you can see what's going on and now make decisions based on understanding the deeper parts of you.
Well, I think we talk about the root, right? The branches and the root. And people are afraid to get to the root because of the work or the pain or revealing what they either forgot about or didn't even realize was shaping them, and kind of these choices that shape our lives. And, we get overwhelmed by them at some times, and, we just kind of make decisions, but we don't realize the impact. How can this Primal Question Framework help empower people to make those choices aligned with who they are truly or who they want to show up to the world as?
Every good decision that you've made has been attached to your primal question, and every poor decision that you have made has been attached to your primal question. And when you know your primal question, you can actually see how that is true and how that plays out. And so, like for me, I think about my idea of risk and taking risks in my life. I know there's been a lot of risks I did not take simply because I over-indexed on my need for safety, okay, that I probably should have taken and stepped out in risk. But I also see how much of the positive and the strengths of my life are based on my need for safety. So, for example, I tend to be kind of a simple, calm guy. I don't, which really works great in my marriage or with my team. Mike's not kind of like, woo, like kind of like I'm pretty. When we're in a team meeting, I'm talking about serious things. I don't do denial. I'm not pretending. I like facts. I like the truth. I like everything put on the table. Again, that's all connected to my need for safety. I don't like surprises. Okay, and so some of that has really played out well in terms of who I am as a person, but understanding both the good and the bad that is attached to the primal question. You see, the problem is not having a primal question or a deep emotional need that drives your life. The problem is living in the scramble, all the dysfunctional things we try to do to force it back to a yes. And so again, this is just about radical awareness about our core driver of our life and seeing how that plays out in ways that may hinder our life, but also in ways that actually benefit our life. So for me, what I write about in the book is this whole idea of a primal gift. And the primal gift is this. It's you taking your primal question, putting it over everybody else in the world, and assuming they're asking the same primal question as you, even though there's 6 other questions that people could be asking. But you orient to that particular question in your relationships, and you do a really good job answering that with a yes. So I do a really good job helping people feel safe, helping people feel protected. That's why people tell me they're their deepest, darkest secrets after knowing me for about 2 minutes. Okay. Now, Tyler, my guess is with you, you take your am I wanted question, you put it over everybody else, and you want to answer that with a yes. And so you're a master, or you have this PhD in helping everybody feel connected and belonging and welcomes. And that is a real gift that needs to be leveraged by you. And so again, that all comes from, I basically say this, the thing that you need most in your life, belonging, wantedness for Tyler, safety for Mike. The thing that you need most in your life is the thing that you generously give away.
You talk about the primal gift, and there's a part of me that thinks, is there, I don't want to say the primal curse, but the primal armor, right? When you talk about that, the ability for you is, you create this community where people feel safe. And, for me, obviously the desire connected. I had a friend and we talked about this one day, and he was a, victim of sexual abuse as a young boy as well. And he came to a point where he was grateful for the experience. And as we talked about, it's swinging your gratitude sword. Be grateful because you can serve people through that, much like we talk about this primal gift. But I have to think the backside of that, until we come to grips with that, or for myself, until I came to grips with it in expressing this primal gift, is I put on this armor. Like I didn't know the answer to am I wanted, and so I was so protective. My insecurity put this armor over me. Do you find that? Is that something that, kind of the yes and the no answer? And it's the ability to take that off and say, hey, this is my gift to serve people with.
Absolutely. I mean, I think to me, the whole point of the Primal Question Framework is not to point out something that's wrong with you or that you have to fix. It's simply something that you need to understand and then maximize that gift part. It's so interesting that we unfortunately, we live in a society that loves to judge needs or judge our pain or trauma or things that maybe we've experienced that are perhaps negative. And and this is really 20 years of work that I've been doing, I actually believe those moments of pain, trauma, anything that we may have experienced in the past set us up for this very, very powerful new gift that we have the ability now to deploy in the world. But we have to actually understand what's happening here. We have to understand how we see our pain, how we see our primal question. I don't see my primal question or the emotional need for safety as something to be ashamed of, even though, to be honest, we live in a society that says men should not be afraid. Mike, don't be a fraidy cat, right? There's certainly a lot of a judgment that could come my way, and I could either listen to that and sort of deny the fact that no, I need safety in my life to be my best self as a leader, as a husband, as a dad, as a friend, as a counselor. I'm not going to deny the reality of that need. I'm not going to judge that need. I'm not going to judge my past either as somehow that makes me flawed or defective. The responsibility to do something with our pain is so critical and so important. And so part of this is really not focusing so much on like there's a problem with you, but the primal question is about saying, hey, this is an opportunity, a superpower that you have called your primal gift based on this emotional need that you've had all your life. Now let's go use it to help some people.
I think there's a point. I have a card. It's a card that you'll get one of these, Mike, and it says the biggest barrier between you and who you show up to others is the armor of your insecurities. And again, coming back to that armor, that's a central point to me. But you talk about that being afraid, and I would throw out, say, no, the people that are challenging you for being afraid probably have the biggest fear and insecurities, but they're unwilling to be vulnerable about it. And there becomes a barrier between them and the person that they can serve people as. It's where I see in this world that, we navigate in, whether it's, coaching your end or leadership. And it's like the people that want to hide from their experiences because it makes them less than are the people we should be most afraid of. Or they're the people that do the most harm in society as opposed to the one that's vulnerable. And it's like, hey, our friend Brad Lomenick, who shared to me, is like, the guy that stands in the front of the room, throws his arms in the air and say, my pits are sweating. It's okay. We're going to get through this. People trust compared to the person like, I got it all figured out. There's nothing to see here. It just, you go do, and I got this all under control. How does that, this lack of forgiveness, this lack of self-compassion, this lack of self-awareness really feed into maybe some of the challenges we have in society?
Yeah, well, you don't have to look far to see people who have some pretty massive blind spots in terms of how they're coming across, either as a leader or as a friend, or just the unwillingness for us to look at our pain is pretty significant in our culture, and we just would rather move on. We're unwilling to do the work. We're unwilling to process that. And I understand there's no judgment towards that, but if you want to set yourself apart as a leader, as an individual, I believe the pathway is through looking at the things in your life that you don't want to look at, looking at your blind spots, asking for people to challenge some of your assumptions and thinking about the world. I mean, for me, I certainly could have lived my whole life thinking that I was in mortal threat and danger, but I needed to do a lot of therapy to understand that that just wasn't true. Even though I felt that way as a kid, I don't have to live that way as an adult. And part of what I write about in the book is this whole idea of, if I could write a prescription to your primal question, it would be what I refer to as living in your primal truth. And the primal truth is where we take our question and we turn it into a statement. So, am I safe becomes I am safe. Or for you, Tyler, the question, am I wanted, becomes I am wanted. And what that does is it now puts you in control of, I'll answer my own question for me. I don't need to look to society. I mean, if I'm looking to society to answer my primal question, I'm gonna I'm gonna be in a lot of misery and agony and suffering, because society is more than willing to answer my primal question with a no. I just turn on the news for a few minutes. I'm like, I get a million no's, right? There's tons of quote unquote danger in the world, and I'm just not gonna live my life that way. And so I'm gonna answer my own question. I am safe. Okay. And that's the truth. That's what's interesting about this, is so much of the question is we don't actually realize that the question's already been answered. Like, I have the ability to protect myself now. I'm not a child. I'm 6'4", 210 pounds. I can protect myself. I have friends, resources, what have you. Okay. I was able to do that when I was a kid. So the question seemed appropriate. Am I safe? But now I live in a suburb of San Diego. Okay. I'm not living in, gang infested territory in LA. Okay. This is my life. I am safe, and I can take responsibility for my safety. Just like for you, you don't have to ask the question of, am I wanted anymore? You just have to look at the truth of your life. Of course you're wanted, Tyler. Of course you have friends and relationships and people want you part of their life. You no longer have to put that question out there and wonder if you're wanted. You can live in your primal truth knowing I am wanted, and letting that be really the theme or motto that you show up for the world each day in.
It took me a lot of work to get to that point. It took me a lot of years. And it was, growing in my faith and growing my experiences and wanting more and having mentors that spoke into my life and creating daily practices that helped me back that up and not listen to the outside noise that you talked about. So what simple daily practices, those that are listening or watching, what can they implement to deepen their connection to themselves and help answer this question, but make sure that they see that answer every day?
Yeah, well, I think again, part of the point of the framework is, first and foremost, we need awareness to what's going on. We have to understand the rules of the game here. And it's hard to sort of participate in healthy decisions or healthy choices or daily practices if we don't actually even know what we need to practice. We don't even know what's going on. And so first and foremost, I would just say, understand the emotional, that core emotional need that's driving your life. Which of the 7 questions is your question, and start there. And then you start building out practices around what does a yes feel like? What do you need? So for me, it's like, I know that I need to be in control of my schedule. Okay, anytime my schedule starts feeling out of control, or I'm sort of out of rhythm. Rhythms are very important to me. Order is very important to me. Again, that speaks to the control, right? The control that I like. And so I'm going to build practices that feel and build boundaries that are going to help me answer my primal question with a yes. And this would be healthy things that I would need. Now, the other part of it is I also, and I talk about this in the book, this whole concept of self-leadership. I am responsible for my own need. I can't depend on the world to orient around my need. I can't expect my spouse or my partner to completely meet that need. I have to be responsible for it. I have to be the healthy adult saying, okay, I can't live in this nonsense of like always living in my scramble or thinking about, what somebody says on the internet about my safety, that somehow is relevant now to my life. Like I got to be smarter than that. So some of this is just living in much more what I just call healthy adult wisdom, right? We have to take responsibility for the need. We have to be smart about actually how to meet our own need. And so I don't know what that looks like for you, and for everybody, it is kind of a custom thing, but getting honest with that, the fact that the need is there and that we are responsible in meeting it, not anybody else.
How do we invite people into that? Because as you talk about that need, and I think about, the world we live in, it can, any point it's chaotic, right? And it's no different, I believe, whether we go back 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 2,000 years ago, there's chaos in society. How do we invite people into this space to where we can be like, okay, we can do this together. We can actually be at this together.
Yeah, I think the best way to kind of talk about that is understanding the influence of the primal question in our romantic relationships. So I do couples counseling, work with couples, and we use this framework as a way to understand our spouse. And basically what I say is that you cannot be in a long-term relationship with somebody who consistently answers your primal question with a no or a maybe. The relationship simply won't work. And so typically what happens with couples is that they're in a relationship and they are inadvertently answering each other's primal question with a no or a maybe. And so what happens is, like, I'd sit the couple down and say, hey, listen, do you want this relationship to work? Do you want to lower the conflict? You want to lower the temperature here? You want to be much more aligned? You want much more joy and happiness in your relationship? Well, then get good at answering each other's primal question. The problem is, I then go, okay, Sally, tell me how Joe can answer your primal question with a yes. And she goes, I don't know. Okay. She's only very clear on how he answers it with a no. And so part of that, again, that's self-leadership. I have to understand my own needs. So Sally's got to be able to say, Joe, I need you to do this and this, because when you do this and this, I get a yes to my primal question. Now, that's kind of the simplicity of like the power in relationships. So let's take this to a boss and employee or relationship. An employee cannot continue to work for a boss that continuously answers their primal question with a no or a maybe. So let's take primal question number 6 is the question, am I good enough? Okay, so a boss comes to their employee and the employee has a am I good enough primal question? Well, part of that profile of that question is they tend to, their kryptonite, or the thing that sort of instantly sends them in their scramble, is criticism. Okay. So a leader coming to an employee that has a Q6 question, am I good enough? Their defense mechanism is going to be a defensiveness once they start feeling that you're bringing any sort of feedback, and rightfully so. It could be very like honest feedback and real feedback and needed feedback, but that Q6 is going to feel like that's a no to their primal question. And so what we can do is we coach the leader and say, hey, listen, before you engage anybody, make sure you're answering their primal question with a yes first, okay? And then engage them with whatever leadership thing you need. So, I mean, I'll give you an example. I had a CFO and a CEO. A CEO was like, I cannot get feedback to the CFO because every time I start bringing up anything that might be off, the numbers are a little messy, or they're not where we need to be in terms of the company, he'd get really defensive, okay? He would start like saying not his fault, or he feel like he's being blamed. And the CEO is just like, no, I just want to talk about the numbers, okay? Well, the CFO had am I good enough as his primal question. So I coach the CEO. I say, hey, listen, before you get into this whole feedback loop with this CFO about where the numbers aren't where you want them to be, talk to him how glad you are that he's on the team, how good he's doing as a CFO. Remind him of how valuable he is to the company. Start the conversation there with a yes to his primal question, and then bring the feedback. And so it's just, with you, Tyler, if you were on my team, I would never, like, let's say I'm the boss, and there's 5 of us in the office. If I ever decided to like go to lunch and take a few people to lunch, or like an office lunch, I would always make sure that Tyler was invited, okay? Because for me to leave you out is going to answer your primal question with a no, okay? So I can start thinking about how my relationships can be improved by simply knowing my employees or my spouse's primal question and learning how to answer it with a yes.
Okay. I take a deep breath because that was so good, and there's so much there to kind of dig a little bit deeper in. And the question that's hitting me is like, is it more important for us to know our own primal question, or knowing the primal question of others so I don't screw it up the relationship? I mean, it's almost like which path to go down, and both of them will yield results.
Exactly.
Digging through this kind of like, all right, someone's hearing this for the first time. They haven't had a chance to read your book. They're listening to you share this information. I'm like, okay, I guess I want to stop. And this is just a lot of me collecting my thoughts. But man, we're talking about this stuff that can absolutely change the effectiveness of a CFO. And it's based upon how the interaction goes with the CEO and CFO. Has nothing to do with their accounting skills, has nothing to do with their forward planning, their auditing skills, but all to do with how they're viewed and respected as a person.
Yes. Or the Q6, absolutely. But see, it would be a different profile for a different question.
For someone else, yes. If we were to dive back into this, and again, how do we start this process? I'm reading the book. I read the book. I want to go to my office, right, in my team and say, oh my goodness, I realize this is a difference maker. I can't go and give them the book necessarily and obviously and just like, oh, everyone take the assessment. But what things can I start to integrate so I can start to figure out what their primal questions are?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first and foremost, if you're listening, I encourage you to go to the website, primalquestion.com, and take the free assessment. It takes just a couple minutes. You can learn what your primal question is. If you're in a relationship, have them take the assessment to learn what their primal question is. But I work a lot with different organizations and a lot of different teams. And even my own team, we're completely organized around the framework of the primal question in terms of knowing each employee's primal question, thus knowing kind of what makes them come alive, how to answer that employee's question with a yes, but also things that I might do as a leader where I am answering that with a no unintentionally, but I want to be aware of that. And so this very much becomes a tool for better relationships. And to your point, Tyler, it's not just a personal development thing so I can understand myself better. It really is this amazing opportunity to understand others better. And what I like to say, it's kind of like seeing the Matrix. Like once you understand the primal question model, you see like, oh, okay, this all makes sense now. I understand why we're having so much friction. And it was so confusing to me before, but now it's no longer confusing. Oh, I see why he does that when I do this. And it becomes this really powerful way to connect. And whether you're looking to connect with yourself, connect with your spouse, connect with your kids, connect with your coworkers. It's just because fundamentally you start with the most important thing about that person, and that is their deepest core need, emotional need. And when you answer that with a yes and you start there, it just lowers the drawbridge of the castle and it allows you to cross over into the castle and have amazing access to people and have this really healthy relationship.
Would you say that's the biggest way to utilize the primal questions is kind of needs compared to skills? I'm thinking about the Strengths Finder or, Enneagram or DISC or Myers-Briggs, all those other assessments, right? There's lots of assessments. And that what hit me is primal questions focuses on their needs. Those others are about giftings, skills, where they can be best utilized within an organization. But the primal question really comes back to is like, okay, what am I doing to make sure I attend to the needs?
Yes, absolutely. This would be kind of in its simplest terms, needs-based therapy. And the way that I look at all things in terms of how human beings do things or why they do things, it all starts at the need. And really, what I would say, it all starts at an unmet need. And that unmet need then produces emotions and feelings. And those emotions and feelings then produce behaviors and choices. But again, the roots of this, it all starts at the unmet need. And so once we start focusing, because it's fine to like work on behavior modification, okay? It's fine to talk about our feelings and emotions, but let's talk about the thing that's driving all of it. And what's driving all of it is an unmet need. And so that at the core is what this concept is all about. Yeah, sure, we talk about gifts, but gifts is really just an expression to me of an unmet need. The reason I'm great at safety and risk management is because of a need for safety in my life. The reason why you're so great at including people and making people feel connected and gathering and convening and making people feel like they're special is because of your need to feel wanted. See, it all starts there. And it's just a whole new way to understand ourselves, but also understand each other.
Personal growth, finding your own necessity of needs, right? It took me a while to figure out what needs I had, right? I'd show up in ways and I didn't know what I was trying to solve. And personal growth has its ups and downs. It's a journey. How do you encourage people to celebrate their progress on that journey, knowing at times it's going to get pretty difficult as we're going through that? Maybe we're recognizing a past where our needs were unmet and realizing, oh, that's why I do what I do.
I mean, this is the hard truth about, unfortunately, the world we live in is that no one really cares about our needs. Nobody really is that interested in hearing about our needs. And we have a lot of self-judgment towards ourselves around having needs, which none of that is a great place to start in terms of being able to talk about our needs and communicate our needs and identify our needs and become much more fluent in needs in general. So, I mean, we really, unfortunately, live in a society level and in our relationships just around behaviors. We look at behaviors, we see behaviors, we focus on behaviors. And then maybe some of our advanced people in our society will then go, okay, well, now I just need to understand my emotions and feelings. And if I can talk about my feelings or my emotions or name my emotions, but listen, that is incredibly difficult for most people, by the way, just to name their emotions and feelings. And then we're saying, hey, we want to go deeper than that. We want Tyler to understand his deepest need. Ooh, well, that's a tall order. And again, that's why I believe the primal question is such a powerful tool, because it cuts through all of the judgment, self-judgment, societal blocks, not have to understand all your emotions or feelings. You just go straight to understanding the need that drives everything in a simple way too. I mean, you know the book, you've read the book, you're aware. This is not overly complex. This is not the Enneagram. Okay, this is not like strengths. It's 7 questions, and you just have to know what your question is, and then you'll be rocking and rolling and ready to roll.
Well, I mean, there's a thought here. I wrote it down. A leader's greatest opportunity to get the most of people is understanding and answering their needs.
Yes.
If we think about that, if it's just like, it comes back to, if I think about my kids, if I think about my wife, one, I have to understand my needs so I can express them. And it's important that I express them, not in a way of taking advantage or whatever else. Just, hey, this is what I'm focused on. But finding ways to ask and understand their needs. How do I do that better? How do I do that organically and from a point of, I want to help you, not I want to fix you?
Yeah, right. Because so often that here comes that judgment around needs. For someone to actually have a need means that there's something wrong with me. So we have to get rid of that idea of like we're trying to fix somebody. What we're trying to do is trying to understand somebody so we can actually serve them and actually love them more effectively or connect with them more effectively. And so the reason why I want to understand Tyler's primal question is so I can be a better friend to him, so I can understand. Maybe I'm watching Tyler and he's all in his scramble. Okay, I understand the kind of conversation that we need to have. There's something in Tyler's life that is making him feel unwanted right now or feel rejected. Okay, so it's just this, powerful way of orienting around each other. But we do have to get rid of a lot of that judgment and negativity around having a need. And listen, I do no service to anybody to deny the fact that I need safety. Hold that as a secret or just like pretend that doesn't exist. It's just, I'm not helping anyone, including myself or my marriage or my kids. I'm also not leaning into that primal gift part. It's like knowing my need and really having a PhD in safety, you having a PhD in being wanted and belonging. That's a powerful thing to deploy and distribute in the world. It's like, I want to be clear on the upside of that need too, and have a robust conversation around it, not as there's something wrong with me, but showing that there's something a lot right with me that can be contributed in a particular aspect or a particular way. It's like, hey, listen, if we're having conflict in our organization, call Mike, okay? Because Mike can come into conflict and create safety and protection to have open and honest conversations about what's really going on here, okay? Somebody who has like, am I successful, which is question 5, the primal question, they're not going to be your best people for conflict, okay? Because they're just going to be about winning. They just want to achieve. And when things are going wrong, they're not the greatest people to call in for, relational conflict.
Yeah, they avoid.
They avoid it. Yeah, it's just not their gift, right? Because that's not what they have been, organizing their life around. You actually might be, I'd say like if we have let's say we are wanting to get the neighbors together in our neighborhood, and you and I live in the same neighborhood. It's like, don't call me because I'm just going to make everybody feel safe. Call Tyler to get the group together to have a July 4th block party, because that's your gift of connecting people, gathering people. Like it's awesome. You do that because you're awesome at it. And so it gives us this whole framework of like who's best for this particular situation. And I can tell you a lot of times people are misaligned in their job occupation with their primal question or their primal gift. And it's unfortunate they're going to get really frustrated because they have a lot to give in a particular area and they're not being utilized.
The piece there that coming back to it, and again, you understand, we talk about the needs, we talk about how people can express that. And you made mention, I know this down, it's holding our needs in does not serve us or help others support us. And kind of that idea, we need to express it. It doesn't make us needy. It just makes us, I would say, it's not vulnerable, it's just transparent. And the only way that we can help serve others or people can serve us is if we choose transparency.
Could not agree more. I was with a group, a very successful search firm, spent a couple days last week with a group. And the biggest thing that we talked about was building trust in the leadership team. It's about 12 of them, amazing, talented group of people. But the most effective thing that they could do as a leadership team and really a value to distribute into the company in a more effective way was trust. And one of the things that we talked about for quite a long time was honest communication creates trust in a company. So again, when we're talking about our needs, I love that concept of it's not about transparency or vulnerability. It's just being honest, right? Let's just be honest with our communication. That builds trust. And now we have stronger teams, stronger companies, stronger marriages. And that's all we're talking about. We're not trying to trick anybody or fool anybody or ask somebody to do something that, is going to work against them. Understanding your need, your core emotional need, and being able to explain it and talk about it in a simple way, powerful, and gives you an advantage, and then everything around you begins to win.
That's when you really express your superpower, is when you can share your needs and help others fulfill that in the process of doing the same for them. That's how people accomplish.
Yeah. Well, another way, listen, Tyler, I could keep fighting with my wife around my primal question and never have that conversation about my deepest need. And she, her primal question is, am I loved? Question 3. And we could just keep on fighting and being in conflict and missing each other, or we could just get down to the brass tacks of what's really going on here and learning how to meet that need within each other and understanding why that need is important to each other. And we have a lot more successful marriage. It's our choice though. Again, we can put our head in the sand, or we can look at our core drivers and understand our deepest needs.
So one final question, and I know this is possibly deep, is what do you find keeps people from asking that last question or making that last statement of, oh, I can continue to hide this or I can let it out and we can actually have a beneficial relationship? What keeps people stuck?
There's multiple reasons, but I think the greatest reason is fear. We are afraid to look at the thing that we believe is ugly and painful and a liability versus an asset. And so we're just afraid of it. We've been judged before. We've been rejected before for having needs. And so there's just a lot of fear and misunderstanding. I think the second half of that is really what I'm trying to solve with the primal question in the work that I'm doing is we think it's really complicated to look at kind of that stuff. And it feels like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so much work and so confusing. And I'm going to fail at understanding my deep. It's like, so really the whole idea of the primal question is making this as simple as possible. Everyone can understand this. It is not overly complicated. And so if we can overcome the fear and we can overcome the complexity, we can then move into, I think, being our best selves.
Man, I appreciate it and I love it. Thank you, Mike, for your time. Where can people learn more about you and your work and the 7 primal questions?
Yeah, the thing I'd encourage anybody listening right now is go to the website, primalquestion.com, take that assessment. Again, it's really It's easy, it's fast, it's free. I don't know. I can't make any more compelling argument than that. Primalquestion.com. Take the assessment. You'll get your results. You'll get a kind of a free little coaching video from me. You'll get kind of a profile of your question and some of the things to be aware of around your unique primal question. And that'd be probably the best place to start. And then the second place, I just encourage people, if you're a reader or an Audible listener, head on over to Amazon and pick up the book, The 7 Primal Questions, and begin the journey of really understanding you in a better way.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you to all of our viewers and listeners. Remember to subscribe on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. By rating and reviewing each episode, you can help more people discover impactful leaders like Mike. Until next time, choose to lead with impact.